hopefully Marcus Hayes, I'm sure he's going to be out and about covering the Phils and whatever else he's covering for the Inquirer and Daily News. Longtime columnist there. Follow him on Twitter at InkStainedWretch. We always love to have Marcus on when we're on the air.
He's our guy, man.
Once again, here he is. Marcus, what's up, brother?
I ain't covering nothing, man. I'm coming down to the shore.
Let's go.
Like y'all.
Let's go. We'll play a round of golf. We'll hit the beach, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, we'll
I'll be
host
at
you.
Cape May National, man. I'll be at Cape May National at least 2 days. So.
Oh, that's
hit me up.
that's Weinberg's neighborhood. You got to get him to. He's the mayor down there. He knows. He knows everybody.
I only go to Cape May National when Weinberg's at training camp.
I'm sure they'll have plenty of orange crushes for you because Weinberg isn't there. They usually run out when he's there. So, Marcus, I wanted to have you on because I was going to steal some of your content if you were coming on or not, because I really liked
Permanently borrow.
Yeah, well, borrow, of course.
With attribution.
Yes, all of the above. But you had an interesting piece yesterday in the Philadelphia Inquirer titled Ryan Howard, the Phillies can, quote unquote, catch a wave and ride into the playoffs like his teams once did. And just, reading through the article, there is a lot of eye-opening comparisons that it gave me a little bit of hope. You're like, all right, you know what? Maybe I should stop being so negative. This team is 6 games over 500 as it stands on July 26th. So there are some positives to draw from it. And I just wanted your thoughts on just writing the piece and how you're viewing the team overall today.
Well, Josh, let me ask you this. If I told you they're going to add Segura, Real Muto, and especially Bryce Harper, and a week before the deadline, not even a week, 5 days before the deadline?
Yeah.
They're going to be in the wild. They're going to hold the final wild card slot. If I told you that, no other context. This is March 30th, March 28th. No other context. They're going to be 4 or 5 games over 500, and they're going to hold the final wild card slot. Would you have taken it?
Yes.
Right. So the reason people in Philadelphia or Phillies fans are disappointed is because the Phillies did too well too early. Not because of where they are right now, but of where they were a month and a half ago. So when you look at the team and in the context of sort of the big picture and reality, it's not disappointing whatsoever. We're having a conversation right now about a team with no starters past their second starter. You can take Smiley or leave him, but no real starter, no established starter past their number 2 starter. And it's relevant deep into the season, regardless of Bryce Harper and Real Muto and Segura and the rest of the assemblage. To me, that's fine. To me, that doesn't get Andy McPhail, Gabe Kapler, and Matt Klentak fired. So, and at no point has the team performed to the level that any of them should have been considered, fireable. So the reaction to the team, your disappointment, your pessimism, has nothing to do with what they are. It has everything to do with what they were or what you thought they were.
Yeah, I think it's just trying to, get on the therapist couch and dive into my negativity and a lot of the other, fans and people that follow this team, their negativity. I think it might be just unrealistic expectations, and it just reminds me a lot of the Sixers team where people are, they want Brown fired, they want Simmons out. They think Embiid's eating too much Chick-fil-A. They don't have a bench. The list goes on. And then you look into baseball season now at the Phillies, and I think there's a lot of unrealistic expectations. I think that always comes with Philadelphia sports, but it feels like it's been raised this summer.
Here's the thing about Philadelphia sports, and I'm a transplant 25 years ago, and it's been true since the beginning. More so than any other area I've experienced, and I've been to every town and covered literally every sport in every town. Philadelphians don't want a team to win. They want a team that is guaranteed to win. They don't want a team that's good. They want a team that can't lose. And to me, I don't see that's one of the reasons why I never understood Yankee fans. Where's the drama? All you're doing is setting yourself up for disappointment. I understand if you're an organic Yankee fan, but if you live in Omaha, Nebraska, or if you live in, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, why are you a Yankees fan? It's no fun to root for Ivan Drago. It's fun to root for Rocky.
Speak for yourself. Drago is a beast.
I rooted for Rocky. Marcus Hayes with us, Stained Reche. Marcus, this column that you have up has great parallels. And had you gone to interview Howard, you had the idea and then went to him? You had the facts in front of you first and then went to him to get sort of some corroboration because it paralleled with him coming up? I mean, even the stuff toward the end of the piece where you talk about the Phillies adding a funky left-hander, in 06, and then the Phillies added funky left-hander Drew Smiley. I enjoyed all the parallels that you drew together.
Well, they added Smiley after I talked to Ryan, and I had no idea that they were interested in him at the time, I don't think. But when Ryan was speaking, it was Ryan Howard Day, and it was bobblehead and stuff like that. I just thought it would be compelling to see if he, the original, Jim Thome's understudy in the original Bryce Harper, the big left-handed bat that, put people in the seats. I thought it'd be interesting if he saw parallels between those teams and this team. And the answer could have been no. The answer could have been absolutely not. This team is much better. We had Cole Hamels and me and Jimmy and Chase. But who did we have after that? The answer could have been no. But the answer was a pretty emphatic yes, that, he saw. And if you're honest about it, those 07 and 08 teams, they're pretty flawed. If you look at the way that they got into the playoffs in 07 and then won the World Championship in 08, I think they missed. I think they didn't have to play 6 or 8 of the best teams that made the playoffs in 08. And 07, it took the Mets losing 12 out of 17 for them to get in the playoffs. And, they had to win 13 out of 18 or something like that. But those two realities about 07 and 08, nothing was guaranteed. So that's why I think he and I see that era as being similar to this era. And honestly, I enjoyed 07 and 08 much more than I enjoyed 09, 10, and 11, because it's no fun to cover a team where when they're at the top of the heap. Because when they're at the top of the heap, all you're doing is writing about disappointment stories unless they win everything, right, which was the case last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. All the hysteria about the Philadelphia Eagles put them in a position where they were truly underdogs the second time around, and there wasn't a whole lot of joy in them overcoming what they had to overcome. There was more disappointment that we didn't win it all again, and that's unfair, and this should happen or that should happen. It just, for me, the allure of sport is to watch Shane Lowry win the British or Darren Clark win the British out of nowhere. To watch the Phillies win it all out of nowhere in 08, to watch the Eagles win it all out of nowhere in 17. And it's hilarious to me that, and these are Philadelphia teams that will be appreciated and beloved forever by Philadelphia, maybe more so than the 83 Sixers, who were kind of supposed to win it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I was at that Ryan Howard bobblehead game too, by the way, the one when they gave that out. That it was against the Nationals. I think Maikel Franco had the walk-off home run winner for that one, as it looked like the Phillies were going to send you home with a bad taste in your mouth, and then Maikel Franco changed all that. But I'm curious, since you brought up that game and you talked to Howard before the game, what did you think of his speech when he told everybody in the stands, don't boo these guys?
Well, he could have told them, don't throw a beer bottle at him either. That happened to him.
It did.
I mean, one of the consistencies about guys who play in Philadelphia, and a lot of them don't say it, but it's true, is that they can't believe how badly the Philly fans in general, throughout all of their sports, they can't believe how badly they treat players and teams that are successful to a degree or that have had success. I mean, I think it was 2 years ago, Claude Giroux admitted to me, I asked him the question, he admitted to me in his exit press conference, do the boos get to you guys? And he says, yeah. We don't like when we're playing and we can hear them booing us and it's a tie game. Yeah, the boos get it's not. There's less support than there is disdain, because there's a sense of entitlement and this sense of I want mine now, which is it can be suffocating. Philadelphia fans get this, they have a deserved reputation for being passionate and being engaged, but they also have a deserved reputation for being incredibly negative and incredibly entitled.
So one thing, Marcus, that I looked at the Phillies too on the road trip, they went 4-1 and they didn't allow a home run on the entire road trip. But then you sit there and you look at the parks that they played in, including Detroit, that you have to have a howitzer or a cannon to get it out there, I guess, right? So,
well, unless you're Roman Quinn, apparently,
right? He turned on one. That's true. But I mean, have we seen some? That's been one of their Achilles' heels too, is the giving up of the long ball.
Yeah, there were 3 or 4 balls hit really by both teams that could have inflated those scores, especially in Detroit. But no, I don't think Vince Velasquez has particularly turned a corner. I'm not sold on Nick Pivetta being the bullpen piece that they hope he could become reluctantly, by his standards. But no, I think they are kind of what they are. I think they're going to win somewhere between 85 and 89 games and be right on the edge of that second wild card. I can't see them making it, trading anything significant for anything significant, simply because, they don't have a lot of significant things to trade. And I don't think Andy McPhail thinks, I don't think Matt Klentak thinks, I don't think Gabe Kapler thinks they can do anything significant in the postseason, even if everything breaks right.
There was a lot of comparisons that we touched on a little bit in the article, Marcus. One being Charlie Manuel. He was the new guy in town, and people were like, who is this guy? Get him out. Insert Gabe Kapler now. Same thing. Ed Wade at the time. Matt Klentak. Jamie Moyer. I thought this one was interesting. In 2006, the Phillies added Jamie Moyer. A lot of people at the time were like, what the heck is this old guy going to do?
And he was garbage at that point, right?
Yeah.
He was not a good pitcher he did great. He resurrected himself in Philadelphia, I think at the age of like 41 or 42.
Yeah, and he came on the scene, and he was a big piece. I think that's fair to say. And now the comparison to Moyer is Drew Smyly, still very early on, but nonetheless his debut looked promising. Which of those comparisons do you think is the most intriguing? For me, I think Manuel and Kapler is a good one.
I agree. Yeah, you just don't know. You didn't know what you had in Charlie, because Charlie's only other management opportunity in the majors was a team in Cleveland that was, being dismantled. Great team in Cleveland, but it was being dismantled. And you certainly have no idea what you have in Gabe Kapler, excuse me, who, like Brett Brown, has way less experience than Brett Brown in practical experience running a team. But like Brett Brown, you don't know how he's going to react in October or August and September, and in August and September that are relevant, where he has chances. Number one. Number two, how is he going to react in playoff games? How is he going to set things up in playoff games? I mean, I find Terry Francona to be a mediocre manager, except for the postseason. He's like the Curt Schilling of managers, if you know what I'm saying. Like he's pretty good, he's okay, he shows flashes, but then in the postseason he gets his stuff together and he's really, really good. So we don't know anything about Gabe Kapler. 250 games, 260 games into his managerial career.
No, we don't at all. And I know you just touched on this with PT, but I really find it intriguing where Matt Klentak, what his game plan is and where his head's at right now. PT and I talked about it a little bit before you came on, and it was like, all right, if the Phillies sweep the Braves right now and then they win 4 or 5 in a row, and we talked about this with you last time you were on, but does this weekend series impact where Matt Klentak's head's at and if he makes a move or doesn't make a move? Because if he makes a move and misfires, that's not going to be good for this team moving forward.
Right. I really don't think they're going to make a big move. I don't think they're going to make a significant move, period. Mainly because I heard the team president say, we're probably not going to do that. If
right.
we make it, we make it. If we don't, we don't. When Andy McPhail talked about a week and a half ago. No, I can't see it happening. And one of the things that we tend to forget is the pitchers we're talking about, Velasquez, Eflin, Pivetta, and Jared Eichhoff, who's hurt. Those are guys that they used assets to acquire. These are guys that they hoped would become relevant last year, this year, next year. So it's not as though they've not addressed the issue. It's that they've addressed the issue, and the investments they've made haven't paid the dividends they'd hoped so far. So it's not as though the team has, no plan. This was the plan. You can argue that it's not working out all that well, and it's certainly not working out as well as they thought. But you can also argue that this plan could still work out. I mean, Zach Eflin was their best pitcher for the first 2 months. Nick Pivetta does look good in the bullpen right now. Vince Velasquez has pitched well the last 2 times out. It's you can say they didn't do their due diligence, but they entered the season with 6 starters. I think Eichhoff was coming off an injury and in the minor leagues. They entered the season with 4 young pitchers they thought could pitch, and it's hard to criticize them for not having starting pitching depth when they thought they had starting pitching depth and built that starting pitching depth over a number of years, via trades and investments that didn't pan out as well as they hoped so far.
Marcus Hayes with us, Phillies with the key homestand, 3 against Atlanta, 3 against San Francisco, 3 against the Chicago White Sox. This is their 9-game chance to either make hay or whatever the opposite of that is. Trade deadline, obviously, next Wednesday. See how I just biffed it and went in another direction? Let's talk about that other team in South Philadelphia that's getting the dominant amount of news right now. Eagles are officially at training camp. Have you been to the NovaCare complex yet? And if so, you talked a minute ago about great expectations and how it's more fun to cover the team that doesn't have all the expectations loaded on them. Boy, the Eagles have some expectations loaded on them.
They do. When you just one move, the acquisition of Deshaun Jackson changes everything for them. The idea of Deshaun Jackson, as good a player as he is, has always been much, much bigger than the reality of Deshaun Jackson. He doesn't catch many passes. He doesn't gain many yards. He does help every offense because he occupies a safety. But he also, inflates expectations. They haven't really won anything. Deshaun Jackson hasn't really won anywhere. And it's not him necessarily. It's the teams that he's been on and his relative value to those teams. This is a really good team. And because Deshaun Jackson's on it, you can make the argument for weaponry. But what are the weapons really? Your other starting wide receiver is Alshon Jeffrey, who's a very good wide receiver. Is he top 10? Is Nelson Aguilar top 20? Are any of their running backs top 20? Their best offensive lineman is Lane Johnson. Their second best is probably, with all due respect to Jason Kelsey, is probably Jason Peters, who missed 30% of the snaps last year and played every game. Expectations are – I covered the dream team, and those expectations were ill-founded. These expectations, if you have them winning more than 11 games right now, are probably ill-founded. They're probably the second or third best team in the conference with, the Rams probably aren't as good as they were, but I'd still say they're better than the Eagles. And the Saints are, the Saints were better than the Eagles when Alshon Jeffrey dropped that ball, and are better than the Eagles right now, But when you add a name like Deshaun Jackson, who carries, sort of that much nostalgia and that much weight, it changes expectation. And that's really unfair. They've got, they lost Michael Bennett and Chris Long, and almost nobody's talking about that. They do have 2 starting defensive ends in Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett, who are good. Derek Barnett missed most of the year last year with injury, if I'm not mistaken. And Brandon Graham, it took him, 5-6 weeks to get going coming off an injury. This is a team with a lot of question marks on both sides of the ball, all over the field. Offensive line issues. They don't have a right guard right now. The right guard, Brandon Brooks, blew out his Achilles 6 months ago. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to start game 1. I don't know if he's going to play game 1, but I do know he will not be 100% all season because nobody's 100% that close to that injury, coming off that injury. So there are a lot of issues, at least 25% of them on the offensive line. And if the offensive line isn't right, does your quarterback with the broken back, and the bad knee, does he survive the season? These are, it's not that the Eagles are a bad team. They're a pretty good team, but they're a pretty good team in relation to the rest of the conference more than anything else. and they're not the best team in the conference, and I'd argue they're not the second best team in the conference.
Do you give some credit, though, to Deshaun for not taking the bait yesterday and the older, more mature Deshaun Jackson? You know, the guy in 2011 might have jumped right on board with the Dream Team Vince Young's infamous statement. And Deshaun even laughed about it, I think, yesterday with the media, where he was like, yeah, I remember when that happened. We don't want to put that target on ourselves.
Yeah, I'll be convinced that Deshaun Jackson has taken a huge leap forward in maturity when he gets like 4 targets in 3 games.
And doesn't complain.
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson was not a good soldier last year in Tampa Bay. Deshaun Jackson wanted his quarterback, remember?
Right.
So, I mean, let's not pretend that, you know, Deshaun Jackson has gone a complete character overhaul. He hasn't complained yet, but we're 2 days into training camp. They just gave him a bunch of money.
What's the number one position that you're looking at during training camp, Marcus?
You know, I hate to say it over and over again, but one of the things you can really tell in preseason games and training camp is cornerback.
Yeah.
And, you know, who knows with these cornerbacks? I can't tell you. I can't tell you if Rasul Douglas should start. I can't tell you if Avonte Maddox is going to be good. I can't tell you which position he should play, whether it's outside, inside, or safety. You know, their defensive backfield, you know, it's a crapshoot. Without Malcolm Jenkins, who you can argue has been 95% of Brian Dawkins since he's been here. Malcolm Jenkins played 7 positions in 1 game last year. They're Pro Bowl safety. And it kind of, you wonder if Malcolm Jenkins wasn't so socially active, if he wouldn't be, you know, sort of more hyped as an actual football player, because he's a spectacular football player. But without Malcolm Jenkins, this team, the last 2 seasons, is, you know, they're just not nearly as good. He might be more important than anybody else on the team because of the number of things he does at the high level he does. But to answer your question, you know, it's going to be cornerback, especially now that Michael Bennett and Chris Long are gone. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of, you know, quick deliveries by the quarterbacks. I think the Eagles forced opposing quarterbacks to get rid of the ball fastest in the league last year, and still, you know, were productive as far as getting to the quarterback, mainly because of Fletcher Cox, but also because of, you know, the way that they used Michael Bennett and Chris Long, neither of whom are with the team anymore. Chris Long retired. He didn't want to be a part-time player, and Michael Bennett was traded to the Patriots because he didn't like his contract. So for me, if these cornerbacks have to cover a half second, 3/4 of a second longer, you know, in general, can they hold up?
It's going to be interesting to see. Health is always public enemy number one, or right at the top of the list, and never a shortage of storylines when training camp begins in South Philadelphia. Marcus Hayes, columnist for the Inquirer and Daily News. Follow him on Twitter at InkStainedWretch. Marcus, have fun at Cape May National, man.
Hey, hit me up, man.
I'm ready when you are.
4.
2 on the front, 2 on the front, 2 on the back, 2 for the total.
That's right. We're going to do Nassau's and carryovers, and we're going to get pencil whipped.
That's right. I press.
By the way, Marcus, the swimsuit issue has now moved to May. You know that, right? It moved from February to May. This is blasphemy. This is terrible. Plus, they had 3 covers instead of 1. They had Camille Kostick, Alex Morgan, I'm okay with that, and Tyra Banks. So 2 out of 3 I know, but
not bad.
It's no Kathy Ireland.
I think you need to stop fixating on a swimsuit.
What are you talking about? That's our go-to shtick.
Dude, any opportunity, it's getting brought up.
Okay.
Oh, man. Marcus Hayes.
Take care, buddy.
Thanks, brother.
All right, see you.